We can turn the earth's revolution. We have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. The power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. It's decreed.
My name is Alexis Goldsmith. I'm the organizing director at Beyond Plastics. And we're here today because we want real solutions to New York's waste crisis. And we are determined to pass the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. And we're not going away until the Assembly gets it done. There's more than 1 ton of plastic for every person on Earth. And the petrochemical industry has known since the 1970s that recycling was not going to fix the problem. But they've run extensive messaging campaigns to keep the focus on downstream cleanups and provide cover for the continued extraction of fossil fuels to make more and more plastic. Well, plastic is warming the planet 4 times faster than the global aviation industry. And they want to triple production in the next 35 years. The current administration is paving the way for that by rolling back certain regulations, abandoning environmental justice communities, and maximizing fracked gas extraction, which is what plastic packaging is made from. And when it's thrown away, it goes to landfills and incinerators, and we have more incinerators than any other state. So we can't let the legislature just look at this as a recycling issue or as a cleanup issue, because that's not the source of the problem. We have seen time and time again that industry will disrupt and delay real solutions. And they seem to be in every arena, including Albany, peddling alternative facts and keeping legislators distracted from what would really solve the problem. And that's why we want to pass this bill. This bill will reduce plastic directly. It will phase out packaging that can't be recycled. It will make big companies pay to clean up their trash. It will get toxic chemicals out of packaging to protect our health. And it will prevent false solutions like chemical recycling from counting as real recycling. It's really important that we keep in our thoughts and our motivations the people and communities who are most harmed by plastics and petrochemicals. They've been in this struggle for a long, long time. They have a lot to teach us. I'm really proud to be in solidarity for them. And I want to bring up our first speaker. She is a Black and Indigenous organizer and the co-founder of the Brookhaven Landfill and Action and Remediation Group, Monique Fitzgerald.
I live next to a 270-foot monster. We say at BLARG that the landfill at 270 feet tall is a monument to the racism on Long Island.
That's not right.
That's not right. We see this federal administration coming in, dismantling environmental justice agencies and offices across the country. We are very alarmed by that. However, it's not new, right? Like Alexis said, we've been dealing with this since the inception of this country and the colonizers who brought these kind of concepts here. So we have no choice but to fight with our bodies every single day. And I've been fighting with my body since I was born. The landfill was constructed in 1973, and 5 years later I was born. So I had no time of my life where I was not harmed by this landfill. So I've been working, forced labor, again, to try to get this landfill closed down my entire life. We didn't want it there in the first place, but here we are 50 years later. The landfill continues to be renewed, re-permitted, expanded throughout the years. We were promised that this landfill would close at some point and be a park for our community, but that never has been realized. We were promised that this landfill would be shared with neighboring communities that are whiter than ours, but that was never realized. We were promised that we wouldn't have to deal with this all our lives, but here we are, we're still dealing with it. Now the problem is, how do we close a landfill responsibly? If y'all remember, back in the 80s, there was a thing called the Marlboro 4000. This was a garbage barge that left Long Island and traveled around the world trying to dock the waste from Long Island at different places. Nobody wanted our trash. That was in the 80s. And here today, the new Marlboro 4000 are these rail transfer stations that are trying to truck our waste to other communities. Now, I do not want our landfill next to my backyard, but I don't want to truck our waste to somebody else's community.
That's right. Right. That's right. Yeah.
So we see this bill as a journey to zero waste. And for this journey to be real, we have to center our environmental justice communities impacted the most by waste. We have to bring them to these spaces and make sure that they are heard and that we listen to the solutions that are provided from the community and on up. So this is what we have to do. This is a zero waste plan, and this is part of what we need to do to make sure that we stop waste at our backyard. Thank you.
I drove up from Peekskill, New York, home to the Wynn Waste Trash Incinerator that burns Westchester County's garbage. My census tract that includes that trash incinerator has a higher environmental burden than 98% of census tracts in New York State. And that is according to New York State itself. That incinerator was a choice made by Westchester County to sacrifice the health and well-being of the residents of Peekskill to solve their garbage problem. And for over 4 decades, Peekskill residents have been bearing that burden, and it is long past time that it stop. PRRIA, the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, will go a long way into addressing the public health emergency facing Peekskill and other host communities for incinerators and landfills. It will take some of the most toxic chemicals out of those plastics, but most importantly, it will stop the flood, the tsunami of plastic that is overwhelming our waste system and costing taxpayers millions and millions of dollars across New York State. For too long, plastic producers and packaging companies have been profiting and leaving us to pay the price. Pay that price with our tax dollars, pay that price with our planet, and pay that price with our health. It is time that stop. I am grateful to my elected officials, Senator Pete Harcum, Assemblywoman Dana Levenberg, for being champions for this bill. And I'm pointing the finger squarely at the head of our assembly, Carl Heastie, for his failure to bring this bill to a vote for the 2nd year in a row. We have enough co-sponsors in the assembly to pass this bill. Who does Carl Heastie represent here in Albany? The plastic producers or the people of his district and the people of New York State? The people. I am a scientist. I am a mom. I know full well the harm that is being done to my children. And one of the things I fear I will grow to regret as my children age is that I chose unknowingly to raise them in a home less than a mile from Westchester County's largest industrial air polluter. That they are breathing daily the Clintons' garbage, Martha Stewart's garbage. If you live in Westchester, they're breathing your garbage. But I am lucky, I am blessed that when my kids get sick, I can take them to the doctor. I have a car. I have a job with paid time off. I have health insurance. A lot of my neighbors don't have that. Carl Heastie's district, a lot of his constituents don't have that either. He is failing us by protecting the plastics industry. New York State has the most trash incinerators of any state. Carl Heastie, I hope you get this message. You will be hearing from us in this next session. Get PRRIA passed. Thank you.
All of you know that plastic is everywhere. It's in our oceans, it's in our rivers, it's in the rainfall, it's in our water that we drink and the food that we eat, and it's in the air. We breathe plastic in our air. So it's not surprising that plastic is now being noted and researched and that it's in our body. So it's in the brain, it's in the heart, arteries, and our blood. It's in the liver and lungs. It's been documented in men's testicles. Well, I shouldn't say men's testicles only. Okay, it's documented in testicles, and it is in mother's milk, and it's been documented in placentas. We are poisoning not only ourselves, but our children and grandchildren are being poisoned with plastic. Now, our bodies do not like plastic and the chemicals that are in it. It's a foreign body, and it causes inflammation, and it causes problems with endocrine and hormone. It's a disruptors, and it does bad things to our bodies. And so it is now being linked to dementia, memory loss, and also being a factor in Parkinson's disease. It's shown to increase by 4-fold the number of heart attacks, strokes, and early death in a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2023. So it has significant detriment to our health. There is one simple but equally challenging solution to this. We must rid most of the plastic in our environment.
And I'm going to segue off of what my physician colleague said here so eloquently right before me. So my clinical experience was mostly at the Albany Medical Center for 42 years. I worked in ICU. I was a clinical nursing instructor. I worked in kidney transplantation for 25 years. The experience that I had every day was the great teacher. Before I worked at Albany Med, I worked in a local community hospital here outside of Albany, and I worked in the oncology unit. And I worked there part-time for a couple of years while I was going to school. The way we took care of patients with chemo is the nurses, without any protective clothes on, without wearing gloves, would pull up saline into a syringe and reconstitute the chemotherapy in the medication room. No protection. We'd shake it up. Red bags of cisplatin, okay? Very potent, works for the patient, very, very toxic to people. Then we would administer it without gloves, and we'd take care of the patients with no gloves, no gowns, with their urine, with their secretions, with their blood. We had no protective equipment. This was in 1979 to 1981 that this happened. So today, probably 10 years after that, they found out how toxic chemotherapy is, and it's an occupational exposure. So today, chemotherapy is mixed under a laminar flow hood. It's mixed with all protective equipment for the pharmacist who mixes it up. There's special tubing that we administer it through. If there's a spill of it, there's a special procedure for the spill. And the nurses handle all excretions by the patient with a gown and gloves, and when they administer chemo, they double glove, okay? So that's the evolution over time to the occupational exposure of a toxin to the staff. What happened to the staff that administered the chemotherapy? One woman had a late pregnancy loss in her third trimester. late pregnancy loss, and she gave chemo every day of her career. And 4 out of the nurses I worked with developed breast cancer. Okay, so my point is, what we're seeing with plastics is the tip of the iceberg. You discussed my physician colleague discussed several studies, one of which shows dementia with plastic in the brain. This is the tip of the iceberg by what we're going to see. We have an obligation to pass along an environment that's habitable for the people that come after us, particularly children. I mean, we know that the effects are bad on adults living within distance of a landfill. It's horrible for adults, but children, what are we doing to the next generation? So we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. The literature is just starting to come out on all the bad effects of nano and microplastics, as well as all the toxic chemicals that we're using to produce those. So as we go forward, I think this is going to be the key. Look to our children to see these long-term bad effects of plastics on human health and on environmental health, which are intricately related. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about plastics.
State conference of the NAACP here in New York has 54 branches across the state. And as you can imagine, much of our branches, our units across the state are dealing firsthand with these issues, with the pollution coming from these waste management facilities. They're, really experiencing this impact in a way that isn't always articulated in these halls. And so I want to just spend a moment just talking about the politics. Last year, this past session, we saw the Senate act. We saw them pass a bill that they understood was urgent. It was an emergency. It is and remains an emergency. The Assembly failed to do so. And I think what's most important as we get ready for session to pick back up is to remind folks, and this is going to be the work of the state conference over the next several months, and really until this bill is passed, is to make sure that people know, people in these halls understand that the people closest to the problem, you all, us, we are the ones that are going to be the loudest advocates for our own safety, for the safety of our children, our future generations. It's not really space anymore to continue to pretend that we can fight this fight tomorrow. And so what I want to commit to you all, and what the state conference has already committed to, both in their endorsement and support of the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, is that we're going to continue to make our voices heard, whether we're up here in Albany or back home in the community where these waste management are really polluting our neighborhoods and our families. We've seen the upticks. You all know who's most impacted by this waste. You all know that those who are less, not just disadvantaged financially, but who have less of a voice here in these halls are the ones who are least able to advocate for themselves. And so the NAACP has been a place where a training ground for folks who want to speak up, who want to fight injustice, are coming to do so. And the environmental issues, the environmental crises that they're facing are significant. And so they're coming up. We're going to be here every week. We're going to be here banging on these doors. We're going to be here right alongside each of you, and I want you all to know that commitment is real. And the last thing I would say is that sometimes change is hard. Sometimes it's hard to ignore the industry who help fund and make the infrastructure of Albany and of government work. But change has to come, because we cannot afford to keep and maintain the status quo. Our families can't afford it, our communities can't afford it. And so we're here to stand with you. We're proud to be here with you and look forward to fighting alongside to get this bill passed. Thank you.
All right, so I'm standing between you and lunch. That's never a good thing. So you heard my name is Blair Horner. I work with NYPIRG, New York Public Interest Research Group. The problem with this legislation is not the environment. The problem is not public health. The problem is our democracy. We elect representatives to solve our societal problems by coming to the state capitol, by going to Washington, and solving the problems as best they can. In this case, they know that this is a problem. Almost 2 years ago, the DEC put out a solid waste management plan that said precisely what we've been saying today. And they said precisely that one of the recommendations they made was to pass a bill like this. But nothing has yet happened. The governor has not made this a priority. The assembly leadership has not made it a priority. And when the legislature and our elected representatives do not solve the problems that we elect them to do, we have to take it to the streets. And so that's what today's about. Today's about activating the activists to go back to the districts and put bone-crushing pressure on lawmakers to get this bill done. Let me give you one last thing before I go. The basis of the Packaging Reduction Act is that the polluters are responsible for the waste that they produce. Very simple. You make a mess, you clean it up. It's a very simple concept. And in fact, there's a law on the books that does this right now, the bottle bill. Simple, straightforward. We all know how it works. I won't describe it for you in detail. But the polluters, the people who make the beverage containers, have to take it back. It's a very simple thing to modernize that law, you would think. 40 years later, it hasn't happened. It's an example of our democracy failing. Big money blocking the public's best interest. And the only way to beat big money is with people power. And so today's the day. Get started. Enjoy lunch, and thank you for coming.